All right, away we go on a podcast. Welcome back, YouTube, of course. We do apologize for the last couple of days, but, well, it wasn't possible. So we are here. Al is off, and so we've got Fliegelman sitting in. Mike, what's up?
What's up, Jerry?
Couple of things for you today. I've got a couple of news topics, if you will, and then an idea that I want to run by you. So the first one, not necessarily a news topic, but topical to the show today, and then it made me think of other things in relation to. So Gio had some sort of a car issue this morning. He left, had to go home. I think he picked up his wife's car. He wound up being 30 minutes late. Whatever, not a big deal. And then me and Boomer started the show, and all was good. During the course of the first segment when Gio was in, I was relating the only time I was late was in 97 or 98. We were doing a Rangers. I was on the schedule, but I didn't know I was on the schedule to do a Rangers conflict game, be the board op, and blah, 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 blah. And I remember, it's funny, because that is now 28 years ago or 27 years ago, and I still remember the
Every
moment.
detail like it was yesterday?
100%. So in 97 or 98, again, I don't remember what year this was, me and my wife had bought our townhouse, but we hadn't moved into it yet because we were getting married in 99. So we were doing work in it. I was kind of back and forth with that and, living with my parents still. And I did have a cell phone. But I also still had the phone in my room, a regular corded phone. And you talk about remembering the moment like it's yesterday. I remember sitting there. I had music playing in my room. The TV was on, but no sound. I don't remember exactly what I was doing. I remember my mom was all over the place upstairs doing things. And my phone rings. And it was about 6:30 or so, maybe a little less than that, maybe 6:15. And I pick up the phone. Hello, and all of a sudden I hear on the other end is, oh, this isn't good. And it was Lisa Johnson, who was in charge of all that back in the day. I'm like, and I recognized her. I'm like, hey, Lisa, what's going on? She goes, why are you home? And I said, well, where else should I be? And she's like, in the studio. So it's like your heart, your stomach just sinks. And I remember, think about this. It was a weeknight in the winter. And I get in my car in Matawan, New Jersey, Old Bridge, New Jersey, and I got to that radio station because somehow there was no traffic that night in like 55 minutes. But I remember everything about it, and I remember getting there and rushing in. Have you ever been late, ever, doing stuff?
A few times. I mean, generally I'm not the most on-time person, as my wife will tell you. My whole family's late. That's where, both my parents,
they're
my dad
on
worse
time.
than my mom. No, they're both late.
Oh, they're late?
Yeah, we're just,
Really?
it just runs in the family. The only few times it happening here, I remember one night, because of working the overnight, I've always had this incredible paranoia that I'm going to miss my alarm waking up for this shift.
Sure.
Which has never happened. The only time I was almost late for a morning show was Black Friday 2 years ago. It was you and Joe.
Yeah.
And I woke up to 2 flat tires. So I couldn't even get one replaced. But it was shot. It was a lost cause. And my wife needed her car. So I had to wake her up, figure something out. And I still got here in time, luckily, because there was no warm-up or anything.
Yeah.
But at night, working the overnight, there's so many things that could pop up with the roads around
For
here.
sure.
And there was just one night where this was around the time when they were doing the Holland Tunnel closures to the city during and post-COVID at night. But it would be open on Sunday nights. There was one Sunday night. Must have been right after New Year's because it was the final week of the NFL season. If you remember, the Raiders and Chargers played that crazy game a few years ago where one of the teams that would have been, I think the Chargers would have been smart for them if they tied the game, but they played to win anyway. I just approached the Holland Tunnel. There's no signs anywhere. And you get to it. There's not even a sign if you're familiar with that area in Jersey City. There's 4 traffic lights before you get to the tunnel. There's not even a sign on that street in Jersey City. Get to it right at the entrance, closed. And I'm thinking maybe it's just closed for a couple minutes. They're closing a lane. Nothing. And then I have to figure out, when I'm coming for the overnight, I don't get here super early. But for whatever reason, also that night, normally going to the Lincoln's only an extra 20 minutes. It took an hour and a half to get from the Holland Tunnel to the Lincoln Tunnel. Back down here into the city. And again, that's normally something that, even if it's bad, half hour max. I was apologizing to Lori. I don't remember. It was either Rosenberg or Connor here that night. I think it was Rosenberg. Just it's just the worst feeling. No, and they're both giving hey, it's couldn't have predicted this. They're looking online. There's nothing tweeted about or anything. Just something happened, whatever. But it's a horrible feeling.
Yeah, no, it's bad. And the only other time I was late was when you said New Year's around there. I've told this story before. It was Thanksgiving night when I figured I was still relatively new to driving in and around New York City and going into Queens. And I think this was Thanksgiving 98, I'm pretty sure. And that's when Rich Ackerman was doing the overnight show on Thanksgiving night. And I remember not leaving early because I thought it was a holiday and there'd be no traffic. And boy, was I wrong. And I didn't get here until 12:30 when I was supposed to be here at 12. And I was supposed to be here actually at 10:30. I got here at 12:30. And Rich had a couple of interviews he wanted to tape, and I missed them. Whoever was there helped him with it. But I walked in, and he was seething until he saw me. And I said, I don't want to hear it. And I pointed to my pants, and I basically had urine all over my pants because I was in so much traffic. I needed to basically urinate in a bottle in my car and missed a lot of it. And the rest of the night, he was so apologetic to me that I dealt with it. But those are the only two times
you see a man covered in piss, you kind of forgive a lot, yeah.
Just disgusting. That's it, though. Those two times. And I would say that was the second one, the second of the two. I would say from that moment forward, now I've always been a nutcase about being on time, and I mean, that means being early. So those two gave me anxiety like you can't believe. And also, I've mentioned before, when I did my interview for the internship here with Eric and Eddie, my appointment was 12:30. I was in the parking lot in Astoria at 8 a.m. because I just wasn't going to be late.
Oh, see, I was like an hour and a half early for mine. You beat me by a lot.
I was 4.5 hours
Well, because
early.
coming from Jersey, like I had the reverse of you. My first Thanksgiving, I interned here over the summer. My first two paid shifts were the night before Thanksgiving tape. There was a Knicks like West Coast game or like Texas, so till 1 a.m. And then night tape. It was the night of the butt fumble game.
Oh, okay.
Because I was so concerned about there maybe being traffic, even though it's a holiday thing.
You don't know.
People should be where they're going for Thanksgiving. I left Manalapan, New Jersey at 2:15 to get here for 6. So I just spent an extra couple hours here just hanging out and watching the first game.
But you know what, though? It's also the peace of mind you have and the low stress level. To me, it's worth it.
Well, like you said, that feeling of anxiety, because this wasn't a big one, but it did happen to me one time when I was coming here as an intern on a Saturday. There was an accident getting in. And I remember it was Pete Hoffman who was on tape. I called him, I'm going to be a little late. And because I used to leave so early for those shifts, I ended up getting here only 15 minutes late for an intern shift. Nobody cared, but just that feeling, like the time drive. Like that, I tell you, that night when I was going from the Holland to the Lincoln, then back in and hitting traffic, even I'm through the tunnel. Now I'm in the city. Okay, this shouldn't be that bad. Shoot down 7th or 9th Ave.
Yeah, it's the city.
But it's also now it's after midnight. It's 12:30, and I'm still sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic. And like just like that feeling
I'll give you one
in your entire body.
You tell me. So I'm going to give you one. You tell me if I would have been at fault for this. I ultimately made it in time for the shift, but here are the circumstances. I am Joe's board op at the time, and this is when Joe was working overnights, and me and him for a year, and he did it with Ray too, so it wasn't just unique to me, but that 1 year I worked with him overnights as his producer board op. 4 nights a week, we were somewhere.
Right, you would go to the Garden.
We
or
lived
Shea,
at the Garden. We lived at Shea. We went to the net games like crazy at the Meadowlands, which was easy for him, and he liked basketball. And even though he's a Knick guy, he did enjoy watching, Kenyon Martin and Richard Jefferson.
Oh,
and
I was the same way with those teams.
Had
we had ticket plans to them because in Jersey they were fun.
So you remember the overtime game against the Pacers, the game 5, the first round.
Reggie hit the 3 to tie it, right?
So we're at that game. Not only am I working that night with him, I'm also covering the game for the radio station as well. So it was kind of like, what do I do as the game started? I think the game started at 8:30. It was a later start. As the game's going longer and longer, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, Joe, forget the locker room. We got to get to the radio station. I made it within a few minutes, but not to me. If I would have been late for that, not a big deal. We were there for work. But even that, I remember in the stands, as much as I wanted them to win, I'm like, I got to go. You get that feeling of just anxiousness. I can't be late.
I wouldn't fault you there because, again, you're there for work and covering the team. It's funny. It depends on your bosses almost. I don't know what our past bosses, how they would have felt about that. I feel like Hurley, if you're there covering a game and it's not on our air, he would be totally fine with, hey, as long as the other host knows and they have to stick around a few minutes, it's going to ultimately make the product better on the next show, so that's fine.
True.
Stay, but I would lean toward you're not fully responsible there because you're there. If you were there as a fan and you just didn't want to leave a game early and show up to work, and then you showed up to work late, then it's on you.
Yes and no. I was also there as a producer because Joe took pride in being at games live in the locker room. Now, he couldn't go in the locker room after because the game went way too long. Otherwise, we would have. And that's where we met a lot of PR people. That's where, because the PR, I'll give you an interesting Joe story. There was one night that we were at Madison Square Garden for a Ranger game. It was a regular season game. It had to have been the 98-99 season because it was Gretzky's last year. And after one of these regular season games, I don't know if you've ever been there, but the Rangers, at least back then, used to bring players out to you. It was not an open locker room. There was like an auxiliary locker room, and that's where we used to hang out. And John Rosasco was the PR guy. He would bring select players out. So we're all gathered, and I don't remember who was talking, but one of the players was out. And I'm sitting there with Joe on the outskirts of the scrum, and, we both get a tap on our shoulder. It's Rosasco. Now, he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to Joe, but whatever. So I turn around with Joe, and John's like, hey, what's a good night for an interview? And Joe's like, well, I mean, usually after a win's a good night, but, what are we thinking? I swear to you, Joe will confirm this. Rosasco goes, Wayne would like to come on your show. And Joe goes, Wayne who? Gretzky? And he goes, yeah. He goes, he notices you're at almost every home game, asked who you were. I told him you're the guy on the radio. So they set it up that Gretzky was going to come on the first night of a road trip after a game in Vancouver or wherever the hell it was. Going to come on right at 1:05. Okay. The Rangers get the crap beat out of them. I believe the final score was 7-2. And I remember Joe saying, well, there goes Gretzky. Sure as crap. 1:02, we're in the middle of the update. The phone rings. Hey, it's Wayne for Joe. Am I on time? Like, wow, the dude still called and did 35 minutes with Joe on the air. And that was all because of Joe's dedication to being at games and in the locker room. Really something. Yeah,
well, I mean, that goes back the old relationship that players used to have with media, with guys that covered the team for so long. They were always in person. There was more coverage from outlets, again, that were there consistently. And there wasn't as maybe much job hopping team to team. Also, maybe players stayed with teams a little bit longer. So a lot of players and guys who covered them, whether that be local TV, radio, a newspaper, they could develop that rapport over the years because you would see each other every day. And that's great to know that Gretzky, the great one for lack of a better word, I said great right before that, like he noticed this guy's here.
Yeah.
If I'm going to give my time for an interview, let it be somebody who I know he's here. I know he's actually watching the games. There's a much better chance that whatever, even if there's a critique of my play or the team's play, well, it's coming from somebody who's taking the time and watching the games. Now, I think, and there's fault on both sides with players and media, but I think what bothers a lot of players nowadays is anybody can show up at any media event. Like we know the Super Bowl media opening night is the worst, where they're being asked questions by people who have never watched them play before. Yeah. And so I think it bothers them, where as they can really respect, most of them, the ones who are good with the media, they can respect somebody who they know, I know we're on opposite sides of this, but you have your job, I have mine. We're going to treat each other with respect, and you know what you're doing, so I'll give you the time.
I agree. And we're talking about Wayne Gretzky. And I'll never forget the fact that he called after they lost that game was eye-opening.
Right, he could have even just said, you know what, let's do it another time.
Night. Could have done it. I think they might have had a game the next night, or maybe it might have been off. I know. And I'm telling you, it was 30 minutes, and it was really cool. And then quickly, and then I'll move on to my idea I want to get to. There was also, Bill Belichick back in the day developed a relationship with Joe. I don't really remember how that happened. Doesn't matter. But when Parcells was supposed to be the Pro Bowl head coach and backed out for health reasons, I believe, Belichick went in his place. And somehow through a PR guy, Belichick was going to call in to Joe live at like 2 a.m. because in Hawaii, I guess it was 8 a.m., something like that. 2 o'clock comes, no Belichick. 3 o'clock, no Belichick. All right, what are you going to do, bro? It's one of those things. He's in Hawaii. It happens. 5 o'clock, the phone rings. Now, think about back then. The Imus crew is starting to come in. It's a little bit chaotic. We only really had from 5 to like 5:17 because there was a break before the 5:20 flash. So it would have had to have been quick. 5:03, the phone's ringing. And I pick it up, fan control. It's like, hey, it's Bill for Joe. I am really sorry I'm late. got away from me. Then I forgot, but I'm here. Can he do something now? I was like, Joe Belichick's on the line. And he's like, what? I'm like, yeah, he apologized. And they did 15 minutes, and it was great. It's like, so you get all these stories about these guys, and you don't really know what they're like. But I've got a couple in my 30 years that, and those two are with Joe, just blew me away from really two legendary figures. Now, Belichick wasn't yet at the time.
Right.
But
Gretzky was at the time.
But Gretzky
I always remember one of the guys who working here, and I don't know if you ever did this show earlier when you were part-time here, but working Sunday mornings with Ed Randall during the baseball season.
Oh, yeah.
And the guest list and the way everybody would either call in or you would call them, you'd have 5 or 6 guests in a 2-hour show, almost always, a manager who was either playing at the Yankees or at the Mets. There was almost always another manager calling into that show, and just the respect that all of these players, current players, former players, Hall of Famers, current managers, former managers, that they all had for Ed Randall.
Which is amazing.
It shows you that relationship with the media. It's unfortunate that I think it does still exist, but it's rare now because, again, you have players switching teams or guys switching outlets and the teams they cover and just all these extra media things.
A lot of
there's
talk
so
show
much
hosts aren't at games either anymore.
Talk show hosts aren't there, so now it's really just guys who cover the team online, and obviously we know what's happening in the newspaper industry, so there aren't as many opportunities for media members to be in that place and develop that relationship with a player over time. But one thing here, it always struck me about how, everybody in the sport and connected to the sport of baseball has immense respect for Ed Randall.
Yeah, which is great. I mean, he's had a life in baseball. Same with Ann. She gets all these golf guests, a whole life.
And it's cool to know that Joe, by being at games, was able to develop that with a few now legends.
Yep, very much so. All right, last thing for you. This is an idea I had, and I'm serious. I want to know what your opinion is of this. So I have this cornhole league on Monday nights. Okay, so we took the summer off because a lot of people can't do it in the summer or vacation. We're coming back in the fall. So we have our competitive league. Everything's good. Prize, cash prize at the end with the playoffs and all that. But I had this idea for a second night, or at least a second night for maybe like a 2-hour window. I wouldn't rent the facility for the entire night. Crazy cornhole. So you set up 7 sets of boards, max of 14 teams allowed in. You could do 28 if you got a second thing. But instead, because cornhole's, as guys get better, it's boring. So what if, instead of playing a team best of 7, traditional cornhole, 7 sets of boards, but set in a way that is non-traditional? And so if you've got 14 teams, that means you've got 7 games going on. Your night will consist of playing 7 games each time against a different team with a different layout. So, for instance, one set of boards where you're going to play one game against one team, instead of the boards being faced the way they are usually, you turn them around. You either have to airmail it or keep it on the board on the downhill slope to score.
Which you would think, I know there's a little bit of friction, but most of the time, if you don't get it through the hole, it's going to slide off the board.
You got to throw it high.
Right.
It's like a flop shot
Right,
in
it's
golf.
got to plop right down, bang, and
Correct.
then flatten
and
out.
Sit. You got to use the dull side of the bag, not the faster side of the bag. Maybe another one, you put them on there on its side, and the only way to score is to sit it on the shelf, or it goes through, and have 7 different. That would be kind of fun, I think.
I think it would be because, like you said, we got people. It's a professional sport now. People can get so good at cornhole.
Correct.
Where
it's boring.
The competition, and it also this kind of brings in now. It might be frustrating for some of the guys who have gotten good, but they'll have to get over it. It brings the maybe lesser players back into the fold now.
Yes,
being a more skilled player,
it's goofy.
At least in the beginning, it's not going to help you as much.
It's like miniature golf for cornhole,
right?
Like one set of boards could be you set the boards up normal, but instead of using regular bags, mini bags.
I mean, there's so many. Do you have the idea for all of the 7 different ways you would do it, or do you have to come up with 7?
I came up with 6.
Okay.
I need to figure out one more, and I have some ideas, and I also, it's a weird one because, when I first started this, I was able to throw it out there having rented the gym already. Now, the short little 3-month lease of the Monday nights that I had were for my baseball team. I never intended to do this. And it was, you don't continue to do Mondays, we're going to rent it to someone else because people want to get in. And a friend of mine suggested cornhole. I'm like, oh, stupid. I put a couple of things out and bam, people were interested. So It wasn't like I had to rent the gym, then advertise it and hope I signed up people where I was going to lose money if it didn't work. I had the gym, and if no one signed up, we were going to let it go after the baseball winter training was over. So it worked out. In this case, I would have to rent it and then advertise it and get people in, or vice versa. So there's a little dicey, but so you seem to think it's a good idea.
It's fun. And meanwhile, I just realized what's on the TV in the studio to my left.
Yeah. Well, that's
you're looking right at it. I'm looking away from it.
But that's what made me think to ask you about it.
Okay.
I'm like, you know what? I want to ask some people what they think.
Well, it's fun because, like, I know my family, we have, at my parents' house, they have a couple of boards. They had them made. So if we're all there, we'll, like, just take it out during the summer and play. It's just fun. It's something that, again, even if you're someone who's a really skilled amateur or just the worst player in the world, or, that anybody can just pick up the bags, stand by the board, and play the game. So it's something that I would imagine, I think why people probably sign up, because it's something that couples do together. It's one of those things, almost like bowling was, where
couples.
It doesn't matter how good you are, how bad you are. It's a sport that you can drink while playing.
Oh, they drink.
It's physical activity, but it's not the most physical activity.
You know when it's physical? Is when we have our, we got to run here in a second, when we have our playoff night. So the way I do it is the top half of the teams in the league make the playoffs. It's a tournament. So you're used to playing one best-of-7 match every Monday. Well, all of a sudden you get to playoff night, and the winning two teams play 3 rounds.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. Now, we go best-of-5, then we do best-of-5 all night in the playoffs because it could be 15 games. Guys are exhausted at the end of it.
It's tiring, and that's indoors. I played a couple weeks ago with my family outdoors, and I was playing with my sister's boyfriend, rotating teams.
Right.
And it was the winner stays on,
Yeah, of course, yep.
We won 3 games in a row. We're like, hey, we got it.
Let's throw this next one.
It's 92 degrees still at 8 o'clock. I
can't
do this anymore. Right.
I know. All right, Mike, we got to go. Unfortunately, we're going to be at Giants camp tomorrow, so there's not going to be a podcast tomorrow. This is really it until Monday when Al comes back. So thank you for sitting in, and you'll do the see ya at the end. There will be no warm-up show tomorrow either because I'm going to be out by myself at Giants camp. I didn't want to do it with you here. I don't need that.
Plus the boom, people know I have to record Boomer's Minutes, so the in and out element of it,
There's too much going on. So this is it for the week in terms of the podcast, and then although Friday we'll have a warm-up show, so I will see you on Friday, but I'll talk to you from Giant Camp, and you get us out of here.
Sure.